But yeah, what I was gonna ask you is I wanted to hear like a little conversation between the brothers about the soul, right? Because I know Vin's got some. Like I would say you got some complex. They're not complex. They just look complex, like ideas. So, what is the soul? Let me ask you, brothers, collectively. You know, Torah readers. What is the soul?
You want to go first, man?
No, yeah, you can go ahead. You can go ahead now.
No, you go ahead first because they know my position. You go ahead. I want to hear your position.
Okay, cool. So the soul and the mind are the same thing. A soul is a fragment of what you call, or personalized section of what you would call the spirit or the breath of life. The soul, like I said, is the mind. The mind is an electromagnetic thing. So the soul, therefore, is electromagnetic by nature, as far as I understand. In terms of my background, I read brainwaves for a living. So for the last 10 years, although with the COVID vaccine, I got booted out the hospitals because I ain't taking it. So now I just, I kind of get work sparingly at private places. But even when you put on your EKG, how do they read you? It's bioelectrical stimulus that's read through the wires, that's given off by the, your heartbeat. And that's the rhythm that shows up through the computer. The only way to transfer this type of data is through the common grounds of electricity. So the soul is an electromagnetic based thing, and the soul is the same thing as the mind, the personality, or what you call yourself.
So what's the difference?
I would agree and slightly disagree.
What are you disagreeing
on? If we're going by the Torah and what that states a soul is, the word for soul is nefesh, and the meaning is more closely linked to living being or the breath. It's a sign of like that something is alive. It indicates more of a physical living state than a spiritual living state, because animals also have nefesh. So it indicates more or less a living being rather than an ethereal spirit or a part of you outside of your body. So
that's what I said, though. You said the same thing I said.
That's why I said I agree with you, but I disagree with Sam.
So where did you disagree?
I'm not 100%
what you said
sure
is exactly what I said.
I'm not 100% sure if the electromagnetic field has anything to do with the soul. That's why I'm not sure about that part. But you can show me, and
how does well, let's discuss it. So the scriptures tell you the life is in the blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the life being in the blood, and what happens when you breathe? Breathing in, you absorb what?
Oxygen.
Oxygen, positive ions, the breath of life. Through the hemoglobin process, you have oxygen molecules that attach to your red blood cells, transporting the blood all throughout the body. Now, without the heart pumping the blood and circulating the blood, without that electromagnetic stimulus, for which if your heart stops, how do they restart your heart?
If your heart stops, how do they don't they send a pulse of electricity to, it's like a jump start when you jump start a car.
Bingo. There's your answer. So how would the soul not be electric? How would the spirit not be electric based?
But they say that the soul, the blood, is like the essence of the soul, or it has the essence of the individual in some extent. But
no,
I don't think the soul is. Yeah.
It says, what does the scripture say? The life is in the blood, right? When you breathe in positive ions from the atmosphere, which is inside the oxygen molecules, what is the positive ions? That's electricity, King.
Interesting. That's interesting, man. I didn't know that. Interesting.
What's your Instagram? I'll send you stuff and we can chop it up back and forth. I'll send you stuff. I'm not selfish. Okay, all right. Well, through here, however we link up, well, I'll probably get back in here more often if Red let me get back on. And then
you can join the Discord.
I'll send him stuff. I was going to ask, is this Discord? I do. I do.
Jez, can you put the link to the Discord?
So you know when you read
I'll put
the
it there.
brain waves, does that mean that you're reading someone's spirit, someone's soul? Sorry.
Yeah, it's an indirect way. I can't the technology in terms of the work I do because I'm a sleep tech. So to make it sound more complicated, I'm a polysomnographer. So just so motherfuckers put respect to our position. Because I've been called a nurse before, and I take offense to that. But
So
yeah,
is that when
essentially
they
you're reading.
attach little things onto your scalp and then like
Yes,
they
ma'am.
maybe get you to watch a sequence of colors or movements and monitor how your brain responds?
Yes, ma'am. This is what essentially the type of material that goes into EEGs. But I do the shortened. I mean, I can do full EEGs. That's just more electrodes, meaning monitoring more sections of the brain. But essentially, I deal with sleep, so I can read the patterns for which the brain is in. So I can do your stage ones, which is like awake, your stage two, or awake like drowsy, your stage twos where you're in sleep but not deep, your stage threes, which really children have more so, and you lose it as you get older, and then you have REM sleep, which is when you go into the dream realm or the spiritual realm, which is my understanding. So
I'll put the
yeah,
Discord
so
in the private
essentially
chat.
it's reading your
That's
soul.
where we chop it up, is where you can join there. You can send us some stuff on there.
Yeah, it's probably better on there actually because you can just talk freely.
Yeah. Hey, Trill, you're gonna have to just send that link to me because I don't have my laptop. My laptop, I just put it in the Apple because I had a cracked screen. So I'm hoping to get that bad boy back.
I'm gonna send it now.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, just send it to my DM. I'll get to it.
Cool. Because we need to get into the
Well,
America stuff.
that's what I was gonna look for.
Because we need to get into the whole America is Africa stuff as well and all that stuff. Because that's interesting.
It's not America, it's Africa. It's well, what exactly is it, Vin?
Well, if Egypt is in America, then is that not the same?
Well, what do you mean? What is it like? Because there's different people since this side of the coin is being explored. There's a whole bunch of different people that have ran off and did their own spin-offs, or maybe they found other things, or I don't really go too much on what other people teach. So from my perspective is the land would be, in terms of Jerusalem, would be over here. So some of the evidences that I've run across, not only just reading some of the context of Deuteronomy 28, but looking at the history which is told. So when them Europeans came over here, it was Christopher Colon who went to Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand and told them about the land over here, and they wanted to go find Jerusalem or recapture Jerusalem. So that's what it was all about, which is called the document is ended up called Dum Diverses 1492 or 1452.
So quick question. So the Templars, when they fought in Jerusalem, or what they called Jerusalem, where was that?
That place you call the Middle East?
Yeah. Because they wanted to go back and recapture Jerusalem also, and they didn't go to America. They went to Palestine.
Right, but where does the Templars fit into the prophecies of Deuteronomy 28?
But those prophecies in Deuteronomy 28 can be interpreted in so many different ways. Because if you actually look at the passage, it says that it should be taken back to Egypt in ships. But historically, the Israelites were actually, during the 70 AD, were sent as slaves to Egypt. You can actually look this up historically. So people want to.
I'm aware of that half. I came into the truth on that half because that's the most popular perspective.
So people want to interpret it the way they want to make it fit certain narratives, but no one really knows 100%. Sometimes some of these prophecies, they may happen in ways that you don't expect them to happen. You know what I mean?
Right, but how do you analyze prophecy without looking at history? Right, we agree there.
No, of course you need to look at history to understand prophecy
right.
in some ways. Yeah. But like I said, like
so the basis of No, go ahead.
So, like when it comes to the Christopher Columbus thing, Christopher Columbus also spoke about seeing black people in the Caribbean and in Americas, right? And this is before the transatlantic slave trade. And
Yeah, those are
we
the
do.
people that he came. Those are the people that he came and took over the Queen Isabella and King
But
Ferdinand,
then, Lloyd, this is
American
the important
Negroes.
thing, though. If you follow the expulsion of the Moors, and if you follow the migrations of black peoples from Africa moving into the Americas, you will find that you had black people in America thousands of years, hundreds of years before Christopher Columbus, anyway. But not saying that everyone.
I'm aware of that. I've studied Ivan Van Sertima, Cheikh Anta Diop. Like I was saying when I came through, I grew up on Pan Africanism. I'm aware of all this stuff. I'm
But
looking
does
at
that
their
not prove that
books
they
right
came from
now.
Africa? But does that not prove that they came from Africa and
So
migrated there?
no, how does that prove that an entire continent of people was made up by people who came from another continent? That doesn't prove anything. That just proves that there was migrations between continents before white people. And that's true in history. We were moving back and forth and trading with one another and sharing culture with one another, even back in the day when we were ruling. This is before Europeans. So,
So
and then also you have to look, go ahead.
sorry to cut you. Where was the Garden of Eden then, and the
Yeah,
Tower of
yeah.
Babel?
From what I understand, the Garden of Eden is not in this earth plane. So, but the locate it's how, because then now you're talking about dimensions, because now you're dealing with the mind. So mind is 4D. Um, okay, so it's not a physical place like how we're thinking of it. It and the location, I would surmise, if we're looking from a geocentric perspective, would be the center, which is what you would associate with what they call the North Pole.
Okay, but then what about the rivers of Pion, Tigris, Euphrates, all these geographical rivers
There are
that we can
four
identify
there are
today?
four rivers that lead there are four rivers that lead out of that central patch. If you look at older maps that go beyond the 1800s. So if you can get to material from beyond when the Tavistock Institute was created to really like the 20th and 19th, late 19th through early 20th century, when the current education systems in Western society were kind of like the the foundations of what they are today. If you can get beyond that to material like books, maps, whether they be cartographers or what have you, you'll have a better chance of getting past the lies of white supremacy.
So you're basically theorizing that the Garden of Eden was in a different dimension rather than a physical place. This is what you're claiming.
Well, that's what the scripture says when you're reading the Dead Sea Scroll works. Um, you're looking at Adam. Adam was fashioned. He did not have the type of body that we have now. They had a body that was composed of dust and light and water, things constructed from the topsoil. There was no
But
blood
but but
just
the
yet.
word
There
Adam
wasn't certain
means
things.
I agree to some extent, but the word Adam,
Means
Adama,
ruddy,
it
red.
means ruddy. So
Yeah,
he was a
red.
black man. He was a red,
Yeah, he was
like a brown black
he
man,
was
like us.
yeah, like me. Yeah, we're not black.
We're not black,
We're brown.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
if you look up ruddy in nature, if anybody goes on Google right now, look up ruddy animals and you'll see they're reddish brown like
Mm,
us.
100%.
But
But this is
we range in hues. We're not all just one conglomerate people. Our genetic ability, we're able to range. I mean, look at Noah. Noah was pale like the fallen. He was an
albino. You
albino.
got that from the Book of
Yeah,
Enoch.
you're right. So right.
You
So
trust the
look at
Book of
Mary.
Enoch?
Look at Mary. Certain portions. I mean, that's like saying, do you trust any of our enemies to have translated any of these works in these books? There's a lot of hijack that we have to work through. It's a lot of damn work. You know what I'm talking about. If you're doing it, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, bro. It's just that I've read some things in the Book of Enoch that are kind of interesting. That makes me think. I don't know too much about this still,
Sa- sa-
but
Same here, but there's a lot more in there which match up with the Torah Tanakh and explain in greater detail. Like for instance, some of the Dead Sea Scroll works, you have to like when I'm teaching them or incorporating them, they're an attachment onto a teaching that is already made through what we identify as the Torah Tanakh. Then with these Quan Run Scrolls, so you get things like the Testament of Adam and the conflict of Adam and Eve, which you have to be very careful, because if you read the preface before you read the material, the enemy or these modern Europeans will tell you that they'll even admit to you their own conclusions are made from the work. You understand? So you have to then go in and with already understanding the Torah Tanakh and be able to parse out, you know, some of the conclusions that they've made and some of the hijack that they put in that doesn't belong. You know, so for instance, I'm not sure if you're a New Testament Christ follower
I'm New
or
Testament.
not,
I'm New
but right. See, so I'm Torah Tanakh only. So from my perspective, that New Testament's the enemy's work. That's the work of Serapis. You know, and this is not anything new. This is the position that those of us over here have understood before the One West camps even existed. So if you know the history of you know, this movement, it didn't start with the commandment keepers in Harlem, but they're a big pillar for what ultimately spread into what you call what we call the truth, you know, and has spread all over, you know, the world. And the original, I just want to point this, my fault. Hang on, the original position was that we were Torah Tanakh only, or what you call Old Testament. We are OT only. We didn't deal with the New Testament. This is Rabbi Ford, Rabbi Wentworth. If you Google some of this history, and I'll send some of the books to Red Pill, and he can send them to you. And then once we build a liaison, you know, once we build a connection, then we won't have to use him as a liaison. But yeah. So if you look into some of that history,
are you familiar with Zion Lex?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Zion Lex.
You know,
Zion Lex came up out of the, huh?
You notice he's changed his position on Old Testament only, right?
Yeah, I don't care. That's his battle with Yah. That don't got nothing to do with me.
And he was a staunch Old Testament only Israelite. Staunch.
Yeah, but did you know that he was brought up or used to believe the New Testament first, if I'm not mistaken?
Nope.
If I'm not mistaken.
He's always been OT.
If I'm not mistaken. I'd have to ask Nasi and find out, because Nasi, I'm in good connection with them. So my first lecture was in the temple. Hang on, King. I'm trying to tell you some history. My temple. But do you know Zion Lex, or do you just watch his material?
I've spoken to Zion Lex before, yeah.
Okay, all right. So you've spoken to him, but you don't you don't have degrees of separation personally. Like y'all don't have personal.
I don't know him personally, but I've watched a lot of his videos and I've spoken to him before.
All right, so yeah. I've chopped it up with him personally through social media. We brush shoulders in real life, and I mess with, like, I fuck with people in his inner circle. So I'm not saying that I know everything about him, but in terms of his position change, like I said, that has nothing to do with me. But I also know that he's connected to people that in a temple that I did my first lecture in, which is Nasi Yashuvel's father. That's Shema out there in Brooklyn. So those are our degrees of separation. I'd have to ask Nasi if he was New Testament first to verify, because I don't want to lie, brother. But if I'm not mistaken,
do you deal with the oral tradition, the Mishnah, the Halakha, the Zohar, the Talmud?
No.
You don't deal with oral tradition?
No, hell no. I don't deal with any of those Talmudic works. No.
Okay. What about the Targum?
I deal with the Torah Tanakh only. What was Moses given? Was Moses given any of that stuff?
No.
Exactly. So
you only deal with the Torah and the Tanakh. That's it. Nothing else.
Torah Tanakh, and then obviously you'd have to work with the 90-something books that are said to be of the rest of our people's works, which is supposedly represented in the Quan Run Scrolls, or what we call the Dead Sea Scrolls. So that's the only reason. I didn't say I rely on it. I said that's the only. I was about to say that's the only reason why you'll see me delve into some of these works to see whether they're authentic or not. And
so
I've read. So to get back to your point with the Book of Enoch, I've read the Apocrypha, yes, but that's more of a New Testament